In this lesson, we'll talk a little bit about using shortcuts or hotkeys in ZBrush to really speed up our workflow. Now, there are a ton of shortcuts, and that's basically just a keyboard key that you can hit in order to create or activate some sort of a function. So all the buttons you see here, those can be assigned to specific keys so that you can work very quickly by just hitting the key and performing that action. So just like any other software package. Now, if you want to see a complete list of the shortcuts and hotkeys, you can head on over to Pixologic's site. They have a complete list, and you can see I've loaded up a couple of those pages. So here we have a ZBrush shortcuts page, and you can just see there are a number of different categories in here that you can jump into and see what the specific shortcut for that is. There's another one here for default hotkeys and mouse actions that will enable you to see a lot of this information here. We'll have time just to go through a few, but if you want a detailed explanation of every single shortcut, then I encourage you to check that out. And that's on the help, on the online Pixologic help there. Okay, so let's talk about a few of the big ones. So we can access our different palettes by using the function key. So if I hit F1, you can see I can bring up my Z tools. If I hit F2, I can bring up the brush here. Okay. If I hit F3, that brings up my strokes, F4 alphas, F5 textures, F6 materials. So that's going to be across the top of your keyboard. You're able to access those different areas. We can also, if we want to access our brushes, we can hit B on our keyboard, and then we can narrow down the brush selection based on the first letter of whatever brush it happens to be. So if I'm looking for a groom brush for fiber mesh, I can go ahead and hit B to bring up the brushes, hit G to narrow that down to my groom brushes, and then you can see a little letter associated with each one of these brushes. So if I want to get the groomer strong, I can hit S now on my keyboard. Okay, so again, that was B, G, and S in succession. So once I know that, I can go ahead now and I can hit B, G, S, and suddenly select that brush very quickly. Okay, and it's a very quick succession once you know that sequence. Okay, if you're just looking for a brush, you can narrow it down using the first letter, and then you'll have another letter that's associated with a specific brush that's not necessarily associated with a name, just kind of in order. Okay, and then I can access that. So those combinations can help you select brushes very quickly. When we're talking about dividing meshes, typically you come over here and you could divide it using this button, but the basic keys for that, hopefully you know these, Control D to duplicate or to divide. You can do that again. If we hit Shift D, that'll take us down a level, and then just D by itself will go up in level. So Shift D and D will move up and down, while Control D will actually add subdivision levels to your mesh. So that's something that can be really useful when you're going in and sculpting. Now, when we're actually sculpting on our mesh, let me go ahead and get a standard brush. So when we're sculpting on our mesh, it could be useful to be able to change some of these settings on the fly. So hitting the S key will allow us to change our draw size on the fly. So I can come in here, do a sculpt, come in here, and just hitting the S key will allow us to go back and forth and change that draw size. You can see it pops up wherever our cursor is. Okay, if we want to now change the focal shift as well in the same way, we can hit O on our keyboard as we're working. If we're painting and we want to change the RGB intensity, we can hit I. You can see that change up there. And if we're sculpting and we want to change the Z intensity, we can hit U. That changes the intensity on the fly while we're working here. Okay, so again, that's S for the draw size, O for focal shift, I for RGB intensity, and U for the Z intensity. Okay, there may be some cases where we want to move, scale, or rotate. That's going to be W for move. That will allow us to move this around. Okay, E is going to be rotate. So we can come in and, scale. I said rotate. E is going to be scale, and then R is going to be rotate. Okay, E, W, and then if you want to go back to draw, Q is going to be the hotkey for that. Go back to the draw mode. Okay. Now again, there's hotkeys for just about everything, and if there's not one for a function that we want to use, you can actually create your own. So let's say that we've got our own menu loaded up here, and this is just this simple one I started to add a couple of things to. And so let's say that I want to add a hotkey for activating the Subtool Master here. So to activate or to create a hotkey, all you have to do is hold down Control and Alt, click on the button, and it's going to give you a little indication. Let's not move our mouse, and let's read that up at the top. So press any key combination to assign custom hotkey, or escape or mouse button to cancel, and then you can press delete to remove the previous assignment. So let's go ahead and add this, and I'm just going to add maybe the pipe button right above the enter key. Okay, so now when I go ahead and I'm working along and I want to use the Subtool Master, I can just hit that pipe button and it'll bring up these options here. Okay, rather than having to go over to our Z plugin and Subtool Master, or even now our custom menu, I can just assign that to a hotkey, and whenever I need it, I can go ahead and bring it up, do my mirroring or merging or whatever it is that I want to do with the Subtool Master, and then that can go away. Okay, so just Control Alt and assign the key, press the key after that, and then if I want to get rid of that, I can go ahead and click here, hit delete, and it says custom hotkey removed. Now if I go in and I'm sculpting along and I hit that key, nothing's going to happen. So if I want to reassign it, again, Control Alt, click on it, hit the button, and now whenever I hit that button, Subtool Master is going to pop up. Okay, so that's another way that you can really speed up your workflow. Those common functions that you use, if it doesn't already have a hotkey, which you can find a complete list of hotkeys for whatever task that you need to use. I can't really anticipate all the things that you'll want to do, but there's going to be a hotkey for it, and if there's not, you can make one for it. So make sure to check that out, and then if you don't have the hotkey available to you, you can go ahead and make it yourself. Okay, so the next thing that we want to talk about is a few navigation tips that will help you speed up your workflow just a little bit. We'll talk about the quick menu and the right-click navigation. So we'll go ahead and do that next.